Welcome back. You here with Goldberg. Today we'll be talking about the communications major. Is it worth your time, money, and efforts? Now, a lot of folks hear communications, they roll their eyes and go, someone's being lazy at a party school. And there's some truth to that stereotype, no doubt. But there is a manner in which someone can approach a communications degree and actually be very successful. It just will come down to the individual in large part. Now, obviously, there are going to be the voices that say, but you don't need the degree. I get it, and we'll discuss in just a bit here. To start with a BLS, for public relations specialists, you see a 7% growth rate projected, 19,000 jobs. So that's not horrendous, although we've seen other industries that are substantially higher. And I just decided to toss in speech pathologists, which isn't necessarily a direct correlation. It depends on what kind of communications degree you're getting. There are going to be specific prerequisites. So I would just argue, if you're looking at that as a possibility or a backup, investigate what the master's programs typically require, if there's more science courses, psychology classes, and incorporate those in some kind of minor, such that if you do choose to go in that direction, it's not going to necessitate returning to college just to pick up an extra 15 credits or so. And as you can see, 25% growth rate, 40,000 new jobs. All fields of therapy, occupational, even music therapy, art therapy, all this stuff is going to be more important in the next 10 or 20 years, whether you agree with it or not, because you're going to see more of a social focus, you're going to see more money, corporate and government heading in that direction. So it's something to be aware of, even if you don't necessarily agree with all aspects of how therapy works. Now the question is, do you need the communications degree itself? And people are going to have that argument. I wouldn't say it's forcibly required. Now, you do have examples like Lee Atwater had a master's in communication. He was a very successful political operative, not well liked. He was seen to be something of a scumbag, but he made it. Now, did he need the degree? Well, I understand you can learn stuff on the job. I definitely agree with that sentiment. I would say, however, if you just want to do it without a college degree, still take certain courses, personal finance, maybe some accounting, public speaking, and a business writing class, because those are very important in almost any job field. You'll have some people say, well, I did STEM, I don't need all that crap. And you've seen them try to communicate something in writing, and you're just like, holy heck, it's pretty cringeworthy. So, yes, business writing skills, public speaking skills, developing appropriate tone. I have a lot of work to do in that category myself. All immensely valuable. So don't scoff on education just because you're not going to necessarily do a 4-year degree. But I would say it's not required to get a communications 4-year, but it can work for some people. As far as, the top colleges, I would always take this stuff with a grain of salt and look at the individual examples, because you'll see some schools that are on these lists just because they have a lot more advertising revenue on the internet.com. But obviously these are some of the top ones: Northwestern, USC, UPenn, and there's one that they've actually paid to be up there, Southern Nazarene, Wake Forest. It all depends. Obviously, if you're trying to be part of the elite, where you go to school will matter a little bit more. If you're just trying to make decent money, not necessarily as imperative. Even before you go to college or while you're in college, it all comes down to, well, not everything, but building that portfolio. I've talked about it before. You don't have an internship yet. You're not a PR specialist yet. Okay, start a YouTube channel. Avoid talking about certain sensitive issues, but if you can produce effective videos, that's a sign of, look, this person already has some skills, self-starter. If you do some blogging, whatever it might be, you're kind of preempting the matter instead of waiting until I get this perfect internship or I get assigned something in a class. You can look at student organizations. This is a good website, VolunteerMatch. You can find volunteer social media positions, stuff related to the press and whatnot, business writing, and it's a very effective way to add stuff to your resume that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily have access to, especially if you're a freshman student without much to your backing. Even if you want to do this stuff where you're not actually going to school, this is also a good place to get stuff on your resume, but okay, he's done this, I don't have to necessarily train in this, that, and the other, understand certain technologies. If you're good at graphic design, you're good at video editing, because of the way a communication is heading, all those are going to be a big boon to many employers. So just because you're not getting paid, if you are interested in something, I would highly encourage you to investigate it because it could very well come in handy. If your college offers some kind of independent study program, that's also an option to consider, because those social research skills you get into, how to properly cite stuff, how to present a report, appropriate information, is all useful, particularly if you end up going into something like journalism, or you're doing political research, corporate research, business intelligence. All of those are areas where such a background is valuable. So speak with your professors, see what that looks like. Is there an honors program? Don't just sit with, I'm going to take the basic classes, because that does not make you stand out from the crowd. This is just a small selection from Chegg Internships, which there are other sites. You see 23,000 hits, this one being for public relations. So a lot of opportunities out there. And if you change to, communications intern or political intern, corporate intern, there's going to be much diversity in that sense, many different opportunities that you can start, at least after, let's say, your sophomore year, if not beforehand, start applying to these organizations and add it to your resume as far as experience is concerned. I just chose this image because I didn't know who else to utilize, but politics is a very good route. You can start in a political campaign, you join a congressional office, work your way up to a deputy, or then actually the press secretary, and then sometimes they'll jump to like a DOD press secretary for the vice president. I've known some people that have pursued that quite effectively. In such an environment, like I was talking about before, your written communication skills, your speaking communication skills are very important, because this type of job setting, like many others in communications, it's all about network marketing. And what I mean by that is you're marketing yourself. So you don't want to be the person in the room who doesn't talk to anyone and just keeps to themselves. You want to always be introducing, handing out the business card, following up. Those are things that are very effective in the political realm, in the business realm. So if you have that ability, or if you're trying to learn to be more charismatic, it can certainly play in your favor. Again, you don't need a communications degree per se, but some of those classes will be invaluable to making you show that you know what you're doing in any setting where you're working. Lastly, you could always go into sales. Now, car sales are being undercut a little bit by the apps, because people can do things a little bit easier than having to actually mess around with the salesperson. But that being said, there are still markets. And then if you get into stuff like selling boats, or selling, I don't approve of the industry so much, but pharmaceuticals, other stuff, there is a lot of money to be made there. And it comes down to communication. It comes down to charisma. Are you able to interact with a person, not being a fake type? I've discussed before the individuals who will take Dale Carnegie and will just come out and you can tell that they've taken Dale Carnegie and it becomes obnoxious. But if you can very fluidly and effectively communicate something, like the person's your friend, without seeming like you're putting it on too much, you can sell quite a great deal. And that's why, some of the courses in communications and psychology, certainly watching a lot of videos that relate to those subjects, will help a great deal. Tom Hopkins has good books on sales techniques. So, that's my view on communications. I wouldn't say the major is absolutely necessary, although for some it'll work, but you should keep your debt down in every case. If you still want to work in a communications-related profession, just make sure you are taking those courses to essentially armor up your knowledge and make yourself more effective.